Howdy. So, I had something on my mind I wanted to talk about with you, was this infatuation that people have, that Americans have specifically, with prolonging everything in their life and telling other people how to live theirs. You know, men need a way to calm down. We have stresses in life, and women have stresses in life too, but I'm not a woman, so I'm not going to speak to that. But we have stresses in life that will ultimately make you live shorter lives. Okay? Stress is the number one killer of people in the United States. Stress. Not tobacco. Not running too much or not cow farts. It's stress. Pardon me for a moment. You know, and that stress can lead to heart disease, cancer. And what people fail to understand, fail to realize, is that when a man picks up his pipe, picks up a cigar, these things have been around for a very long time before there was a cancer epidemic. It's not the tobacco leaf itself that's creating this unhealthy environment. What's creating this unhealthy environment is the stuff they put in the food. And you got people saying, no, that's a sin. Especially Protestant people. At the end of the day, when you're stressed out and you just want to think, you want to stop what you're doing, and men just want to calm down, just want to relax. Don't want anybody telling us what to do. We don't want anybody saying we're wrong or right about this or that. We don't much care. Especially good men don't really care what other people think. The biggest weight you will ever drop in your life. I just lost 30 pounds of fat on the carnivore diet to get healthy. The biggest weight you'll ever drop in your life is the weight of what other people think about you. Okay? I don't care what people think about what I do or don't do. How I raise my kids. I don't care about it. When you have a boss to answer to, when you have other things going on in your life, today we live in this world where you have grown men that care about what people on the other side of the nation think about. You don't have to. You simply don't have to. Stress is the biggest killer of people in the world. Makes you gain weight. Like I said, it causes heart disease. Everything wrong with your body can pretty much be linked back to stress. And if you don't believe that, then just, do more research. It's important that men be able to, in the afternoon, dealing with the stresses of the day, sit down and contemplate how to make things better, what we can do better tomorrow. And in my opinion, tobacco, nicotine that comes in tobacco, is a great way to do that. You can listen to Dr. Huberman talk about that. But at the end of the day, the nicotine, the tobacco leaf, the pure tobacco leaf, not all kind of other stuff that's in it, not cigarettes, not the same thing. This has got one ingredient in it, tobacco leaf. That's it. Cigarettes have 150 ingredients in them or whatever it is. They don't use good tobacco. Smells horrible. Tastes bad. It's a disgusting habit. And it just gets a fix. Being able to sit down and think and contemplate what is going on in life, what's going on in your life, what's going on around the world, is a gift. And it's one that we shouldn't take for granted. We're only here for a certain amount of time. In that certain amount of time that we're here, we need to make sure that we're trying to leave a positive impact on the world. The only way you can do that is by educating yourself. You have to learn how to be. You have to learn how to treat a woman. You have to learn how to raise a kid. You have to learn how to conduct yourself properly in public. This isn't something that we're born knowing. You have to have a positive male influence in your life. Do that. Preferably a spiritual, one that's providing a spiritual role as well in your life. One of the most difficult things we can do as men is raise a son. Try to get that right. I've got a boy, 1 out of 4 kids. Got 1 son. So I put a lot of pressure on myself to try to make sure that he's raised in an environment that is conducive to something that my grandfather would be proud of. I had a lot of respect for my grandfather on my maternal side. I never got to meet, really, my grandfather on my nuclear side of my family, my father's side. But at the same time, from what I understand, he was a highly respectable man as well. And so, am I doing things the way that they used to be done? The things that worked for so long? Because today's society, it doesn't seem like a whole lot works anymore the way that it used to. Now, it's not all a bad thing. We have better technology today. We can communicate more readily. for better or for worse, right? But it seems like the more technology we get, the more messed up things get. Ideas that have no business in society, like this pride movement and whatnot, are more easily populated. Back in my grandfather's day, and they went to war in the 40s. One of my grandfathers, he was 17 when he enlisted in the Marine Corps. Went to Iwo Jima. Those were men back then. Today, 17-year-old boy can hardly tie a shoe. Having a little bit of trouble keeping this pipe lit and talking at the same time. Today, a 17-year-old boy has to be told to take out the trash. He has to be told a great many things, and he has no skill for the most part. We were told that we had to go to college to learn a skill. And college doesn't teach skills. It teaches how to be an employee. We were told that all you had to do was go to school and get a good job. Well, that world doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist for us, and it damn sure not going to exist for our kids. I believe that we have a resurgence of young men in general. I'm 44, and people, myself and younger, my age and younger, are coming back to the traditions of our forefathers and raising and is starting to raise our young men in a manner that's more consistent with what our grandfathers would consider to be acceptable. And I think that's a good way to go. I'm not saying everything that this country's done, or any country's done for that matter, that all of it's been right in the world. But at the same time, hasn't all been bad either. When I was a kid, my grandparents all had gardens, They raised their own food, a lot of it, had cattle. And today, people have gotten away from that. I mean, at one time, 70 to 90% of Americans had, raised most of their own food. And now, 2% of Americans are farmers, feeding the other 98%. That is not sustainable, Then you got like 6 corporations that own all the food and putting chemicals in there that are lowering the testosterone of your son. And it seems like they're doing it on purpose. Push this movement where boys can turn into girls and whatnot. Or say they do. They don't actually. The idea that boys can be competing in sports with girls is one that has been short-lived. It's not something that We don't want to get on this subject too much because it's so ridiculous. I don't want to give it any attention. But the idea that society ever found that acceptable is a big problem. That shows a lot about what's wrong with the world. As men, especially Catholic men, we've had our faith for 2,000 years. We should be here to protect women. That's our role. Provide, protect. Okay? Not compete against. Men and women have very different roles in this world. And that's okay. That's good. That's the way God made it. What we have to understand is that we need to get back to a society that elevates women back to the status that they had. We have to get back to a place where men provide and protect, and in the afternoon are allowed to freely relax from the stresses and the rigors of the day. There's a lot more I could say on that subject. And I don't have to go all that deep into it. But we live in our home, fairly traditional gender roles, I might say, where I'm the breadwinner and my wife is more involved with the kids and homeschooling. And at the end of the day, I've dealt with anywhere from 10 to 30 people in any given day. And I'm an introvert, so dealing with lots of people at any one time or in any one day kind of takes it out of me, I'm just as happy in the woods on sitting on a rock as I am sitting in the house. I'm just as at home. In my youth, not my young youth, I was an adult, but we used to take horses and go out into the mountains for several days. Me and my friends, we'd ride for hours and not even say a word. Just taking in the beauty around us in the mountains of Colorado. And then we'd talk when we got to camp, but sometimes we'd ride 8 hours into the hills before we got to camp. It's a certain peace and relaxation in nature that I believe that men, and I'm not trying to cure all the world's ailments today, but there is a beauty in the quiet. There's a beauty in turning your phone off, sitting back, relaxing, and just listening to nature. There's a beauty in being able to take something that you enjoy and do that. Pick up a book, listen to some real music, music that's more than 100 years old. Classical music. And enjoy it. If you don't like to read, listen to a book. Listen to some philosophy. Listen to, whether it be Stoicism or G.K. Chesterton. Whatever your vibe is, do that. Because society has been feeding you constantly. Ads and ads and ads. Man, I'm sick of the ads. Lord have mercy. I am so sick of the ads. I am so tired of social media. The dumbest things that people do just to get views on whatever stupid little thing. So tired of it. I'm part of the problem. It's not like we don't run ads for our business. It's not like we don't produce content. We do. But it's like whoever's making the most noise gets the most attention, because we live in an attention economy at this point. Attention. Can you imagine? Not about how much good you're doing in the world. It's about how much attention can you hold. He who gets the most attention wins. Not whoever has the better service or whoever has been around longer or more knowledgeable. Attention. That's the scorekeeper. Followers, subscribers is the scorecard. When I decide to make videos like this, you know, I can make videos just for my little audience of clients. But I want to reach out to a larger audience, because I think that this world is in a situation now that needs the help. That grown folks aren't raising men anymore. They don't know how to defend themselves, much less their family. They don't know how to kill an animal and eat it. They don't know how to butcher it. For 99% of Americans, if the power went out right now and all the cars stopped moving, they'd be dead in a month. Dead. The skills to even do menial things on your own have been lost to most people. Got guys dressing like a lumberjack can't change a tire. We're backwards as a society. The entire society's flipped on its head. People dress up, wear costumes to look like something that they have no relation to whatsoever. They wear cowboy boots and they've never been on a horse. They wear lumberjack clothes and have never owned an axe. It's really absurd. We're falling short. And society cannot keep improving and moving forward, because we're getting worse, without these the morals and the values that society has long held, especially within the church. When you look at the Catholic Church, for example, ever since the Second Vatican Council in the 1960s and late 1960s, she's been in decline since the 60s. And I tend to believe that was done on purpose. You know, there was a woman named Bella Dodd, and she actually turned Catholic. But what they did was, she was a communist. She hated the church. And she was working with Freemasons who also hate the church that was created by Jesus Christ. And they took over 1,000 young men that were homosexuals and put them into seminaries back in the 20s and 30s, 1920s and 30s. She's admitted to this. She confessed it to Bishop Fulton Sheen. And then 30 years later, 40 years later, we're in the 1960s. And that's when they decided to go ahead and change the church. All these communists were put in to the seminaries. And then 30 years later, they were, they'd long since been priests, but they now get into positions of power. And they promoted all this. Ever since then, the entire world has been in decline. The whole planet. Bowl's a little tight. The whole planet's been in decline since that period. Not that it didn't have problems before, it certainly did. But not to the extent that it does now. And we see it most evidently when we look at the state of our young men today. I don't think that we can keep on as a society like this. If you're a young man and you're listening to this right now, I don't want to sit here and just pitch doom and gloom. That's not what this is about. What I want this to be about for you, talking to the young men right now, in their late teens, 20s. Be careful of who you look at on the internet and who defines you, or who you allow to define masculinity. The way that some guys out there define masculinity, run around with their shirts off all day, and girls all over the place, is not the way that Jesus defines masculinity. It's not the way that the church defines masculinity. Jesus is the ultimate man. Ultimate man. I cannot keep this thing lit today. You know why Jesus is the ultimate man? Sacrifice. That's what men do. They don't exploit women for their own gain. Men sacrifice. We go without. We do for others. Now, for most men, this is doing for others within their own family. But if we have the means and the capability and the God-given talent, we can do that for others as well. I think that it's important that if God gave us the ability to do that, that we do it. The level of masculinity that you have is not how big your muscles are. It's not how many fights you've been in. It's your desire and your ability to provide and care for others. Can you protect others? Most specifically, your family. Most importantly, your family. Can you provide for them? Assuming you're not disabled in some way. Can you guide them? Can you lead them? Right? Not just guide them on certain things, tell them what to do, but can you lead them? Are you leading them? These are all things that I strive for. As a father, I strive to raise virtuous daughters and a virtuous son in the church. You know, I wasn't always Catholic. Most people don't know that. I was raised Southern Baptist. Being raised Southern Baptist, there was a lot of misinterpretation of pretty much everything Catholic. But that was just on my mom's side. On my dad's side, they've always been Catholic. What we see here is that the more educated people are going to go up in arms about this. But I've seen it time and again that the more well-read people become, the more Catholic they end up being when they get more educated in ancient church history. But aside from religion, that's not what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the ability for young men today to step into that role. And what we see is a giant resurgence, especially in the church, of young men now raising their families Catholic. You know, young girls are wearing veils to mass. Men are dressing up in suits, young men. And they're proud of the heritage that you have as a Christian in the Catholic faith. They've come home. It makes sense to them. They've tried to break the church from what it was, but it's not working. Big pushback on that. Latin Mass has had a massive resurgence amongst the young, which is really a beautiful thing. They've learned Latin. They want Gregorian chant. They want the incense. They want the pomp. They want the pageantry of it all. And so do I. Because that's what keeps it beautiful. That's what separates us. Besides the Eucharist, of course, which is the most important thing, the entire purpose of the Mass, can be found in John chapter 6, verses 51 through 58, where Jesus tells you that it's truly his body and blood. And if you don't eat that, you have no life in you. And we're not talking about the Lord's Supper at in a Baptist church every 6 months or however often they do it. We're talking about a consecrated Eucharist, a host, through apostolic succession, where there's been a laying on of hands from St. Peter on down to the priests that we have today. An unbroken chain of command to the priests at your local parish goes all the way back to one of the original 12 apostles. Laying on of hands. You have that in the Catholic Church. And that's what our young people want. It's what they deserve, quite frankly. In my opinion, and it may not be a popular opinion, but in my opinion, that faith is the best chance we have at creating future greatness in our society. When men were inspired by God, they built the most beautiful things in the world, which are cathedrals today. Medieval cathedrals, they tell you it's the Dark Ages. It was not Dark Ages. Men were inspired. Today, we're lacking that. Artistry is gone. All of it gone. If you're young, say before the age of 30, and you're listening to this, you don't have a family yet maybe, I want you to take into consideration that of what the role of men should be. Maybe you don't have a great role model you didn't have a great male role model. Maybe it's you didn't come from a household that was like that. I did. So it probably comes more naturally to me than it does to others. We had great male role models in my household. My dad, my uncles, and whatnot, all good men. My grandfather, he died when I was 12 or 13. But excellent role model. Good man. But if you didn't grow up with that, I urge you to look towards men that are behaving in the way that would be more Christ-like. Not everybody's a role model just because they're famous or because they say that they behave the way that men should behave. I do believe that you need to have a certain amount of wits about you. I do believe you need to strive to be educated and well-read. I do believe that you need to be able to keep yourself fit. I do believe it's healthy to fight. Put your kids in martial arts or something. If nothing else, it teaches kids respect for other people. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. You need to be able to defend and protect yourself. I'm grateful that my parents put me in martial arts when I was a kid. Come in handy more than once. And I do believe that men should not be soft. Men should know how to build things. Men should know how to create. Not just be a bump on a log waiting for a paycheck and waiting for Friday. You should build something. Build something of value. Deliver value. We'll do a whole other talk on that. But I would urge you, if you're watching this, still, to be the man that you would look up, the kind of man that you would want to emulate. Just start doing it, you know. And if you want to go the Andrew Tate route, I can't stop you. But try to go the Jesus route, the selfless route. The sacrificial route. I promise you it's rewarding. Have a business. Build something you can be proud of. Learn a life skill. Pass down a legacy. Because your legacy is the only thing that's going to live after you're gone. And you don't want to squander this short time that we have. I don't think people are putting enough emphasis on that. But men need a role model. Young men need a role model. And there's not enough of it today. You got a few guys on YouTube, no doubt. Very admirable men. Old Dwayne from Dry Creek Wrangler School is one of them. Jocko Willing. These are men. There aren't a lot. You know, there aren't very many. Why don't you go ahead and put down in the comments below anything you'd like to know more about. I can make a video on it for you. I've had people, I've made videos before, I've had people comment about how they really need this in their life. Somebody to show them how to be, somebody to show them what to do. I think it's valuable, you know. And I hope you get some value out of it. And I hope that if you're still watching this, and it's important to you, that you participate, you know. I hope that you have it. I hope that it brings to mind something that you want to emulate in your life. There's more to life than having a nice car, hot wife, beautiful home. Those things are good. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy it. But at the same time, it's not everything. We're not talking about finances here. Okay, that will come when you start to deliver value, and we can talk about that at length later. But the role that you need is what concerns me today is that people are not getting the right role models that they need. A woman cannot raise a man. She can raise an adult male, but she does not know how to raise a man. That man will have to be influenced by other men in a positive manner for that man to become a good man. Because if not, he can just be influenced by anything. And the younger, the better. So, anyway, that's all I have right now. I hope you enjoyed this, and if not, I'm sorry about that. But let me know in the comments what you want to hear more about. Take care. God bless you.